The Panthers suffered a humbling loss on Sunday at home against the Bills, but they'll look to bounce back this Sunday against the Green Bay Packers. Before they do, let's take a look back at the good, the bad, and the ugly from the Panthers' 40-9 loss against the Bills.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The Panthers suffered a humbling loss against the Buffalo Bills on Sunday at home, losing 40-9 to Buffalo, now dropping to 4-4 on the season, but yet 500 through 8 weeks of the year, which is a positive considering where Carolina's been over the last couple of seasons, and they'll look to bounce back in what would be a major upset on the road this upcoming Sunday at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. On Fridays throughout the regular season, I give you all my 3 keys victory. Then here on Tuesdays, I go back over those keys and see how Carolina did. One of the biggest talking points over the last couple of weeks has been the running back rotation between Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. Many of you upset that Rico has not been the primary back so far the past couple of weeks, but sounds like after reviewing the film in the last 2 weeks, Dave Canales may be wanting to make a shift there and let Rico be the feature back moving forward. But let's start off this show, as we start off every show on Tuesdays throughout the regular season, by looking back at the good, the bad, and the ugly from the loss against Buffalo on Sunday. And certainly, whenever you lose 40-9 at home, there's not a lot of positives. There's not a lot of good things to go over. But I did find a few, and 2 of them are at wide receiver. The first one, Tyrell McMillan, continued his strong rookie season with 7 receptions for 99 yards on Sunday. He had an 85.9 PFF grade, which was the best on the team offensively, and also the best grade that he's had so far during his 8 career games here in the NFL playing for Carolina. So that was one of the positives. Another positive at wide receiver was Jalen Coker. Came back last week in New York to face off against the Jets, had 2 targets, 0 receptions. On Sunday, he had his first reception of the season, and he had 3 total for 36 yards on 4 targets. So good to see Jalen Coker out there. All the Cokeheads, your boy's back, and he looked pretty good as that number 3 receiver here in Carolina. And we'll see how that shifts moving forward throughout the rest of the season. The offensive line, 7 sacks they gave up. At least that's what they would be credited as for people watching it on Sunday. But going back and reviewing it, PFF actually only gave them 4 sacks on the afternoon. 3 of those then would have been on Andy Dalton, like the one right before the half where he took a sack when the Panthers were in field goal range, had to do the fire drill, and unfortunately, Ryan Fitzgerald hooked it to the left. It did not get 3 points on the board before the half. Should not have been in that situation at all. We'll get to Andy Dalton here momentarily, but overall, when looking at Damian Lewis, who missed last week with a shoulder injury, he graded out pretty well. Austin Corbett, who had to go in and play center once Cade Mays was out with an ankle injury for the rest of the game, he also played pretty well and graded out well overall when looking at the offensive line. So a positive there considering the 3 injuries that they had. One of them, Brady Christensen, major. The other, Cade Mays and Taylor Moton. Not so sure how significant they are, but I will say Dave Canales did not reveal anything on Monday. So typically when that's been the case, that means those guys are more to a day-to-day, week-to-week kind of basis. So that's positive news as far as on the injury front there on the offensive line. But that's the only positive I can come out from that game against Buffalo on Sunday. The bad, Andy Dalton certainly was a part of that, had a 42.6 PFF grade. Didn't really need to see the grade to know that Andy Dalton played poorly in this game on Sunday, and somehow that was not the lowest grade offensively on the team. Actually, Josh Nijman, who came in at right tackle when Taylor Moton went out at halftime with a knee injury, he was the lowest graded offensive player, but Andy was right there above him, 42.6. That is the lowest of each of the starts he's made over the last 2 seasons here in Carolina. And looking also deeper at some of his numbers in his last 4 starts, he had a negative 0.46 EPA per play on Sunday, according to True Media. That's the 4th straight game where he's had a negative EPA per play. Going back to last season, he had a negative 0.44 on the road in that loss against Chicago, a negative 0.05 in that loss against Atlanta, where his interception in the 4th quarter cost Carolina that afternoon, and then had a negative 0.88 versus Washington, his last start out a year ago, prior to having the car accident injury with his thumb and not playing the rest of the season as the Panthers starter. So looking at the past 2 games, he has had a minus 0.46 EPA per play against Buffalo and a minus 0.88 EPA per play against Washington. You have to go back to the beginning of last season to find the last time Bryce Young had 2 back-to-back performances that poor. He had a minus 0.45 EPA against the Saints on the road in week 1, and then in week 2 at home in the loss against the Chargers, he had a minus 0.80 EPA per play. So Bryce Young has not played this poorly in back-to-back games in a long time. Andy Dalton, who had not started since, I believe, week 8 or 7 of last year, came out here and had another poor performance. And he will continue, as Dave Canales said after the game on Sunday when asked, to be the backup here in Carolina. I did question on Sunday when watching the game, not even watching the game, back when I was live here with y'all on YouTube, I questioned why Hendon Hooker didn't at least get an opportunity just to see what he could do. And it's not like he was going to do a lot anyways, but why not just give him a chance to go out and play in an NFL game and take Andy out there? Because if Andy's going to have to start again, why subject him potentially to any sort of injury? And it is interesting because last year in that Chicago game, where Andy played poor, and you saw offensive linemen like Austin Corbett and Taylor Moton both go down with injuries, Dave Canales took Andy out of the game and put Bryce Young in there to play garbage time. And when asked after the game about that, Dave said he was doing it to protect Andy. So why not try to protect Andy in this situation where he's not playing well at all, and you have a banged up offensive line, and he may have to start again this upcoming Sunday if Bryce is not ready to go? That did not make a lot of sense to me, but that's what Dave decided to do. Now, looking at the turnovers, Andy had 3 of them that led to 17 points for Buffalo. The Panthers' opponents have 58 points off turnovers so far this season. That is the most in the NFL, and they have a minus 38 points of turnover margin so far the Panthers do have this season. That is tied with the Jets for last in the NFL. So that was a part of the bad. So was the run defense, as that really regressed back to what it had been at the beginning of the season against Jacksonville and what it was at the end of last season in those 6 straight games where they allowed 200-plus rushing yards to each of their opponents. James Cook had a career day and also set a record here in Carolina, and it's a bad record. He rushed for 216 yards. That broke the New York Giants' Derek Ward's record of 215 yards for the most rushing yards by a Panthers opponent in franchise history. Per Next Gen Stats, found this from Joe Person of The Athletic, Cook gained 141 of his rushing yards before contact. That's the most of any player this season and the 3rd most since 2018. So not ideal. Looking at the Panthers' defensive total rush EPA, it was a negative 9.34. That's the worst since week 18 up in Atlanta, where they allowed a negative 16 on that day. So the worst rushing defense performance so far this season, after only allowing 131 yards combined the last 3 weeks against New York, against Dallas, and against Miami. They gave up 216 on the day to one single player, 245 overall. Not good at all. The ugly. The offensive line injuries, anytime you have 3 offensive linemen go down, especially when you're already banged up with Chandler Zavala on IR, with Rob Hunt on IR, and possibly done for the season. We'll see. There was talk last week. Dave Canales said that he could have his practice window open up around the bye week. We'll see if that does happen. But Kay going down, Taylor Moton going down, Brady Christensen going down with what they believe is a ruptured Achilles tendon, would have him out for the rest of the season, and I would guess would end his career here as a Carolina Panther. That is the ugly. And another ugly is another blowout loss under Dave Canales. The Panthers' 4 losses this season so far have been by an average margin of defeat of 20.25 points. They're losing by 3 touchdowns every time they lose a game so far this season. Of course, that was not the case in Arizona, but it was in Jacksonville. It was up in New England. It was on Sunday against the Bills. Under Dave Canales, the Panthers' average margin of defeat is 19 points. Matt Rule's average margin of defeat was 11.4 points. That's just how much worse they have been over the last year and a half under Dave Canales in their losses than they were when Matt Rule was here in Carolina. That is a pretty damning stat. When they lose, it snowballs like it did in New England and like it did on Sunday, and they get their doors blown off of them. That is something that I hope will not continue to be a trend, especially knowing that they have Green Bay on Sunday. They have the Rams. They have the Niners, the Bucks twice, Seattle. The schedule from here on out does not get easier for Carolina. That they'll avoid yet another blowout when they play against some of the upper echelon of the NFL. We'll see if they can do that on Sunday as they head to Lambeau Field. Bryce Young, will he be up there playing for the Panthers on Sunday? Dave Canales gave us a little bit of an update there. Also an update on the offensive line. And it sounds like quite possibly the end of the running back rotation will come this Sunday. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Back here on Locked On Panthers. I believe that Sunday gave some people a greater appreciation of Bryce Young, as Andy Dalton did not have a great day. And you could really see it on his face after the game as he spoke to the media at the podium, just looked depressed. And I get it, man. Dude does not get a lot of opportunities to start. He had an opportunity last year at the early part of the season to be the guy, and we saw how things played out when he was out there. Just mentioned that a couple moments ago. The numbers, his last handful of starts, gets injured and does not make a start again until on Sunday. And I asked him about just the emotions of being at this stage of his career, only getting so many opportunities and not knowing when the next one's going to come and playing the way that he played. And he talked about how heavy it is. So a nice reminder that these guys are human beings, but also a reminder that the Panthers may need to look at a backup for Bryce Young that is not Andy Dalton for 2026, if that is what they decide to do. And also, again, a good reminder that Bryce Young is definitely their best option moving forward for anyone who may have questioned whether that was the case. Now, as far as Bryce Young goes, will he play on Sunday? That will be yet another topic of conversation throughout the week. Now, last week on Monday morning, Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network reported that Bryce Young was going to miss the game against Buffalo because of a high ankle sprain suffered late in the third quarter in that win against the Jets. And he later on did say the expectation is he could miss 2 to 4 weeks with that, and that Andy Dalton would be the starter. Now, Dave Canales came back out there later that afternoon when speaking to the media and said that Bryce Young was day-to-day and would not reveal the significance or the nature of the injury that Bryce sustained. But knowing the way he's gone about things so far this season, when it's been serious, like a guy going on IR, he tells us on Monday. When it's been a guy who's been day-to-day or week-to-week, he does not reveal anything until Wednesday, when the NFL mandated injury report is first slated to be released. And he did that again today, as he said that Bryce is getting better. He had a good running session on Monday, and the goal is to get him out there on Wednesday. They're optimistic that will be the case. And for Carolina's sake, they definitely need Bryce out there practicing and able to at least be limited, but be out there on the field working with the guys throughout the week so that he can be good to go as they travel up to Lambeau to face off against the Packers. That is not a game that they're going to win with Andy. not a game they're going to win Vandy. I thought that on Sunday, if they ran the ball effectively, and we'll get to the running backs here momentarily, that they could have had a chance to win that game of Andy Dalton, who certainly is not afraid to try to push the ball down the field. But his lack of athleticism, his poor decision-making, insecurity of the football on Sunday makes it to where it just is not a situation you feel good at all about if he has to start again against the Packers this upcoming Sunday there in Green Bay. So we'll see whether Bryce will practice on Wednesday. I will be there at the facility on Wednesday afternoon after practice to hear what Dave Canales has to say. And we should also hear from Bryce Young potentially. It can be a little jumbled up depending upon the injury. Last week he did not make his regular podium appearance. He did speak at his locker on Thursday, so we'll see if he speaks on Wednesday or Thursday of this week. But Bryce getting better every day. They're still taking it day to day, as the hope is he'll be out there at practice on Wednesday and then can make the start on Sunday against the Packers. Offensive line injury update as well, as 3 guys went down. One of them, as we know, Brady Christensen, serious. Panthers have not made a move as of this recording as far as him going to IR. Brandon Walton, who has not started, but he's played a little bit at guard, could be somebody who they could sign to the active roster. He's already had his 3 practice squad standard elevations to the active roster on game day, so you'd have to be signed to the active roster in order to play again on the 53 or really on the 48 on Sunday. So we'll see if that's something they decide to do. But Brady's going to be out for the rest of the year with the ruptured Achilles, it sounds like, and probably, I'm guessing, his career in Carolina will unfortunately come to an end as well. They may bring him back, but I don't know what the future will be for him with the Panthers after suffering that injury, and then also knowing how long it took for them in this staff to go to Brady as a starter and as a rotational guy in there with all the injuries that they have suffered so far this season. Now, Taylor Moton and Cade Mays, Taylor going out with a knee injury there at halftime, then replaced by Yosh Nijman, and Cade Mays going down. He said it happened on the first drive of the game where he got rolled up on his ankle. Then he was doubtful for the rest of the game. He was sitting there on a stationary bike, pedaling slowly. You looked at one end, it's Cade Mays pedaling slowly. The other end, it's Rico Dowdle, who's actually moving with intent as he was trying to remain loose. And there was no injury issues at all for Rico. You could tell, like, one guy's out there ready to play. Another guy, he's just kind of sitting there. And maybe if they need him, he'll go back out there, but it did not happen for him. But Cade had an MRI. Don't know what the results of that are, but it sounds like he's going to be somebody they're going to try to get out there this week as well. As Dave said, he'll give us more about those guys, Taylor Moton, Cade Mays, on Wednesday when the injury report comes out. So if that's the case, feels pretty positive that they have a chance to maybe play this week, or at least it's not going to be a long-term thing, as, again, he's been far more transparent when it's been something significant than when it's been something that is day-to-day, week-to-week, like it appears to be with Taylor Moton and Cade Mays as of this recording. Now, Chandler Zavala, someone I was curious about where he's at with his knee injury. Dave did reveal on Monday that they are going to open up his practice window this week. So he has 21 days to be activated. Would be great if he can go on Sunday, knowing that they're now down to Jay Kurhan, Nick Samax, another guy they could go to this week if they need to. So getting Chandler back out there is really important, and it would give them potentially 7 healthy offensive linemen to utilize for the rest of the season in these final 9 games with Icky, with Damian Lewis, Cade Mays. Of course, we're going to find out more about him on Wednesday. Austin Corbett now back off of IR. Taylor Moton, find out more about him on Wednesday as well. And then Chandler, who could be coming back maybe this week, but at least going to be practicing. And then Yosh Nijman. So having 7 guys when you were down to just 4 at the end of Sunday, at least 7 out of the 9 that you came into the year really feeling like you had a good unit there, that would be a positive for Carolina moving forward. All right. The running back rotation. This has been something that has been fiercely debated. I don't even know if it's been debated. It's just been all the fans since Rico Dowdle had those outstanding performances. And look, I get it. The dude was awesome against Miami. He was awesome against Dallas. Both games that Carolina's offense performed at a high level. In both games, the Panthers were able to win. Since then, people have been clamoring for him to continue to be the lead back. And even before Chuba Hubbard came back off of the calf injury that suffered or cost him miss 2 games, people were saying, how do you have Chuba back out there as your starting back? Now, the reality of the situation always was going to be that Chuba Hubbard was going to get an opportunity again to play and be a part of this offense. But as time goes on, we have seen over 2 weeks that very clearly Rico Dowdle is the better back of the 2 at this point in time in the season. And even going back to week 1, he has been clearly, and we're like almost halfway through this, he has been the better running back for Carolina. And there's a lot of numbers. We'll go over those more on Wednesday with Weekly Wednesday Mailbag. Of course, plenty of questions I'm getting from y'all about the rotation. I think you're going to get your answer pretty quickly here on Sunday. And some of the things that Dave had to say on Monday may have answered that as well. So we've seen how it's gone. We've seen what Rico's done. We've seen what Chuba's done, especially the past 2 weeks when both of them have been out there rotating one series after another, which I just have not loved the idea of doing it that way. I don't have a problem, as I mentioned multiple times, with Chuba playing. They're paying a lot of money. They were going to get him back out there, but it does not need to look like you get series 1, you get series 2, you get series 3, you get series 4. It does not have to be like that. There was zero flow to it. Ride the hot hand. Do that instead. But that's not what Dave Canales has wanted to do. He's wanted to give Chuba an opportunity. But he did finally admit on Monday that it's hard to overlook all that Rico Dowdle has done.
Yeah, it's a fair observation. And, Chuba's meant a lot to this organization, certainly to the identity that we wanted to build our team on, and wanted to give Chuba the opportunity to go out there and to continue to impact our team in a positive way. We cannot ignore the fact that Rico has been exceptional, in a couple of games, and then in the opportunities he's had over the last 2 weeks. He's made some excellent plays. Love the tempo and violence that he's running with, and these are all things that we're talking about and working through this week as we look back, on these last 4 games and really taking a snapshot of what's been successful for us. These are conversations that we do definitely have to have.
We cannot ignore the fact that Rico has been exceptional, and the fan base has not ignored the fact. And plenty of my colleagues have also not ignored the fact. I have not ignored it either. I have just sat here trying to just be a little patient and understanding of the reality of the situation, that Dave Canales is always going to put Chuba Hubbard back out there. But at some point in time, and it feels like it's happened now, you have to realize that this is not working, that you had something that was working to a great effective level and also still been working well, even with the limited of carries and touches the last 2 weeks. You have to realize what's the best thing for the team moving forward. So it sounds like, from what he said right there, that Chuba Hubbard's going to take a backup role and that Rico Dowdle will now get the lion's share of the carries moving forward. Is that the case?
That's something we're looking at. And, again, have to respect the job that Chuba has done for us, and to get us to the point where we've established a mentality about how we run. And we cannot ignore the fact that Rico has made an impact when he's been out there. So these are things that we're talking through as a staff, and we'll make that decision as the week goes on.
And you rarely see this in the NFL where a guy who's getting paid a lot of money and someone who's not getting paid a lot of money comes in and is able to overtake them and be the guy moving forward, especially when it's a situation like this, where the Panthers were struggling mightily last year, but still Chuba Hubbard was running his ass off. And they wanted to reward him for the leadership he has in the locker room, the kind of culture setter he was for them, and just a player that he had been during last season. So they did that by giving him a 4-year, $33 million deal. And I understood where they were coming from, but as y'all know, I don't believe in paying running backs because of this situation. You're paying a guy a ton of money, and you have another guy coming in making about $2.5 million this year, and he has outperformed him by a wide margin. And looking at some stats, has been one of the top 3 backs in the NFL. And he's getting paid $2.5 million, and you're potentially paying another guy $33 million across 4 years. Doesn't make a lot of sense. You don't have to pay running backs. You can get this kind of result from a running back who has experience already by not paying him that much money. So understanding that they're paying Chuba, they also understand that Chuba is a guy who a lot of people care about in the locker room and a guy who's respected. And there's a question about just how does Dave manage both of the personalities and really emotions of the situation? And this is how he feels.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the goal, right, Joe? The goal is to make sure that we put the right guys out there. That's my job. And so I really do have to look at that and evaluate it and make the best decision for the Panthers collectively. It's for me, I have to make sure that I keep it about the football. At the same time, I've had a good amount of experience with Chuba, and I've seen Chuba at his best. And now we've seen Rico at his best. And so, I have to make sure we have the right conversations all together and move forward.
His job is to put the right guys out there, and I'm sure plenty of you are screaming he has not done his job the last 2 weeks by not putting Rico out there more than Chuba. Totally understandable for you to feel that way, but that was just not going to be the case. And I do not think that Dave has gotten this wrong. I truly do not. I know you're going to dog cuss me for saying that. I don't feel that way. When you have a player, like you just said, he has experience with and knows what he's capable of doing, you want to give him an opportunity to come out there and show you that he is still that player at this point in time in the season coming off injury. Chuba did not do that. So because Chuba has not done that, Dave has to then seriously consider what he has seen over the last month of the season, the last 2 weeks with the rotation, and the 2 weeks prior where Rico was the guy. He has to take that into account and realize, okay, maybe that's the best thing for the team. That I love you, Chuba. We want to still utilize you. You're going to be a part of this game plan. But the focal point in the backfield now has to be Rico moving forward. So that's what it sounds like he's going to do. So I know you guys have not loved it. You've not been patient enough. And we're 8 games into it, man. You took a 2-week sample size of Rico playing great. And I understand it. And we're acting like he needed to be like extended. Sometimes you're just going to be patient and see things through. And that's what Dave wanted to do. And that's what I've been willing to do. Let's just wait. Let's see what happens. And I had somebody hit me up last night asking about the situation. And I said, well, we'll find out. Because very clearly, Rico's been better. We all can see it. And they can see it as well. But we'd find out whether Dave was willing to be a little bit more patient than the rest of the fan base, or if he was going to be ready to ride Rico. And it sounds like he's been patient enough the last 2 weeks. And now it sounds like Rico's going to be the guy moving forward. So we'll find out. Maybe he'll give us more information on Wednesday. He said he had not spoken to Rico or Chuba about the plan moving forward as they're still reviewing the tape from a day ago against Buffalo. So we'll see if indeed it will be Rico Dowdle as the main guy at running back moving forward. I would expect still Chuba to get some carries, which is a reasonable expectation, but it will not be, and it should not be what it's been, especially on Sunday where he had 12 carries to Rico's 8. That is not, I believe, going to happen anymore, and Rico will be the guy. But we'll find out on Sunday up there at Lambeau against the Packers. On Fridays throughout the regular season, I give you my 3 keys to victory, and then on Tuesdays, I go over those 3 keys to victory. We'll do that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit rugiet.com/lockedonnfl to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonnfl. And don't forget to use our code LOCKEDONNFL so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And how about the Charlotte Hornets, tied for the highest point total so far this season in the NBA? Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. On Fridays, throughout the entirety of the regular season, I give you my 3 keys victory for the Panthers that Sunday. Then the following Tuesday, like today, we go over those 3 keys and see how the Panthers did. Looking back at key number 1, run the damn ball. Buffalo came in as one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, allowing the 5th most rushing yards through 7 weeks of the season, while they were last in yards per rush allowed and 2nd worst in defensive total rush EPA, according to True Media. On Sunday, the Panthers only had 28 rushes for 114 yards, and that's 4.1 yards per carry. So not nearly as good as you would have hoped for in this game. And looking just at the running backs together, Rico Dowdle, 8 carries, 54 yards, 6.8 yards per carry. Chuba Hubbard, 12 carries, 34 yards, 2.8 yards per carry, and a garbage time touchdown. There it is again. It's been very clear, and you cannot ignore how Rico has been exceptional over the last month of the season, while Chuba the last 2 weeks coming back from that calf injury has not stacked up at all. And even looking at some of the numbers here between the two over the course of the year, Rico has a 0.28 EPA per rush so far this season and a 50% success rate. Chuba, a negative 0.18 EPA per rush and a 16.7 success rate. Actually, that was the game on Sunday. These numbers were the game on Sunday. So 0.28 EPA per rush on Sunday and a 50% success rate rushing for Rico on Sunday. Chuba had a minus 0.18 EPA per rush and a 16.7 success rate on Sunday in the game. We'll go over more of the season numbers tomorrow on the weekly Wednesday mailbag, because again, there's questions about what's going on here, even though, as we talked about in the previous segment, it appears an answer has been given and come to by Dave Canales after reviewing the film of Sunday's game. Number 2 was to contain Josh Allen, and they kind of did that. Josh Allen had 12 of 19 passing, 163 yards, touchdown, and 108.0 passer rating, 3 carries for 7 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked twice as well, and 2 sacks where just trying to play hero ball, doing some dumb things. And one of them could have taken his team out of field goal range. He had his second lowest PFF grade of the season, and it was largely immaterial in the Bills win on Sunday. Yeah, he had the 2 touchdowns where he was just a tush push in there on the quarterback sneak. The 1 touchdown pass was Khalil Shakir. Just, man, I mean, not even making a man miss. Just Nick Scott having a poor angle on that tackle there, and that led to a touchdown that really should not have happened on that play. So Josh didn't do anything, which is crazy that he did nothing, and Buffalo won 40-9, which tells you just how good that football team can be when they run the ball like they did on Sunday with James Cook against the Panthers defense. And the last one was the forced turnovers. The Bills had turned over the ball 6 times in their last 3 games heading into this one, and they did not turn the ball over at all, while Carolina turned over 3 times, and their turnover margin has not been good so far this season. 12 turnovers, tied for second most in the NFL on the season for Carolina so far this year. So those are the 3 keys of victory. We'll go over the keys against Green Bay on Friday of this week, heading up there to that game against the Packers. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours, Julie and Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julie and Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julie and Council, where again tomorrow I'm answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. And no, you do not need to ask me about Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, because we've talked about it today and we're already planning on talking about it again tomorrow. So any other questions you have, not about Rico and not about Chuba and the running back rotation and how you don't think Dave Canales is smart, I don't need to answer those because I already got those. So please send me in anything other than that for tomorrow's show by adding me or DMing me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I will talk to you all again on Wednesday for the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers.